Hello everybody and welcome back to the Movie Talk. My name is Ryan and today's video is something I am very excited to talk about, and that is my movie ideas. These movie ideas are something that I've put a lot of thought into consideration in, and they're things I'm very passionate about and excited to talk about with you guys today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first movie story we'll be covering today is a topic I'm very passionate about, and that is Scooby-Doo. This is something that I had a lot of growing up with in my childhood, and I've been thinking about this movie the longest. When I originally started thinking of ideas for original movies, a new Scooby-Doo movie came into my mind immediately, because I don't know about a lot of you, but obviously growing up with the original 2 live-action movies and a ton of more animated movies, definitely just a lot of nostalgia with Scooby-Doo. And the story I have definitely thought out the most, and we'll get right into the story. Well, first of all, we'll get into the title. The title will be Scooby-Doo, The Curse of Crystal Cove. And again, to the story, after the loss of his mother, Shaggy moves with his father and his dog Scooby-Doo to Crystal Cove, Maine. Struggling to fit into his new school, Shaggy's fate changes when Saturday detention throws him together with classmates who he couldn't be more different from. Fred, who's the popular football player, Daphne, who's the cheerleader, and Velma, who is the science whiz. But when strange noises and ghostly noises interrupt the detention, the group uncovers the legend of the founder, a terrifying spirit tied to Crystal Cove's dark past and secret hidden treasure. The secret for answers leads them to an abandoned tunnels, cryptic clues, and the heart of the town's haunted history. Along the way, the teens confront their own insecurities and begin to forge an unlikely friendship. As the mystery deepens, their differences give way to trust, laughter, and teamwork. What starts as a punishment slowly transforms into an adventure that forges an unbreakable bond and sparks the beginning of a legendary friendship between 4 kids and 1 extraordinary dog. Like I said, there was a lot of inspiration too from other movies. I'd say the biggest movies that played inspiration to this was Scooby-Doo, Mystery Incorporated, obviously, as you could tell, with Crystal Cove being the town, and along with that, Ghostbusters Afterlife and the original Scream. But anyways, getting back into this movie, it'll be directed by, I had a lot of names that came to mind, but the one that really stuck to me, I would love for this movie to be directed by David F. Sandberg. Obviously, I feel like he can definitely handle some horror aesthetic, and obviously he can definitely handle more of the more general audience, vibe with the Shazam movies he proved. So I think David F. Sandberg would definitely kill it as a director. As Fred Jones, I'd like to see Peyton Muir. As Daphne Blake, I'd like to see Kieran Shipika. As Velma Dinkley, Bailey Madison, and as Shaggy Rogers, Jack Champion, with Frank Welker, of course, returning as Scooby-Doo. The next movie idea we'll be talking about is my idea for a new Ghostbusters movie. The title of the movie will be Ghostbusters Blood Moon Rising. The synopsis goes as so. Decades after the original Ghostbusters saved New York City from Gozer and Vigo the Carpathian, a new generation has to step up and protect the city from the supernatural. Ghostbusters, our original Ghostbusters, have decided to step down from ghostbusting after getting old age and not being able to truly keep up with the lifestyle of ghostbusting. So they decided to do some recruiting, and after a few years of testing, training, the team selected 5 elite recruits who they believed would be more than worthy of carrying the proton packs and continuing to protect New York City and the world from the supernatural. Now, the new case we will be getting into is the mystery of the Blood Moon. It all goes back to 1929. The sinister entity known as the Lantern King attempts to summon an undead pumpkin army using a cursed artifact called Lantern's Heart. only stopped. It was only stopped because of early paranormal investigators known as the Night Wardens. With that order long gone, the Lantern King is now going to be returning. The reason why he's returning now is because back 100 years ago, the Night Wardens were able to put in a 100-year spell to keep the Lantern King away and put into his alternate dimension. But obviously now it'll be 100 years later, and he's returning to New York to take back the Lantern Heart and rule over New York City. For directing this movie, I thought of a lot of options, but the one that I felt was the best for this movie was Cary Joy. I'm going to butcher the last name, but Fukunaga. Like I said, he directed the last James Bond movie, No Time to Die, and originally he was supposed to direct the original It movie. I believe he also directed the original episode True Detective, so I feel like he could definitely balance a bigger franchise movie along with definitely being able to give some horror aesthetic to the franchise, which I feel that's one thing that I feel Ghostbusters, it's much needed to bring, obviously comedy. This movie would definitely have some comedic elements, but also to bring back some of the more horror elements that I feel have been forgotten about. But now getting to our cast of our new Ghostbusters, we'll start with Wyatt Russell. He will be the leader. He'll be playing the character of Matt Bishop. Then we have Alicia Vikander, as Dr. Elise Norwood. We have Jack Quaid as Ethan Morgan. Steven Yeun as Dr. Nate Park. Then you have Eddie Gafiki as Marcus Tate. You have Rachel Sennett as the receptionist. Camila Mendez as the love interest, Sophie Ramirez. And as the Lantern King, obviously he'll be mostly CGI, but he'll be voiced by the legendary Keith David. And one more thing on Ghostbusters is right now I'll be showing you a picture of the dimension the Lantern King has been in. It'll be known as Dimension 3235. I believe I'm still working out the name, but you'll be seeing it's a lot of New York set back still in 1929. So with people, a lot of pumpkin heads, and obviously the orange skies. So I wanted to kind of show off because our Ghostbusters will at some point in the movie come into this dimension. And so like I said, this would be the dimension where the Lantern King has been for the past 100 years, as it's New York still frozen in 1929. And obviously you can see the vines and the pumpkin people and the orange sky kind of taking over. And our final movie idea for today is one I think might be the most controversial, and that is my idea for an Indiana Jones reboot. Now, obviously, I know this is definitely the biggest swing here, and like I said, definitely the most probably maybe controversial or just bold, but I understand, obviously, as an Indiana Jones fan myself, the Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. But I think I live by the philosophy of don't reboot it just for the sake of rebooting it. Reboot it if you have a great idea and have a story worth telling. And obviously, I'm very biased, but I believe hopefully that this is a story worth telling for a new generation of Indiana Jones fans. With that being said, let's get right into the story for my new Indiana Jones movie idea. We'll start with the title being Indiana Jones and the Sword of the Eternal Fortress. Now, obviously, Indiana Jones has tackled many objects, obviously, with the Holy Grail, the Lost Ark, the Lost Covenant, obviously, Dials of Archimedes in the last one, and, the Crystal Skull. And for this movie, I wanted to get more back into the simpler artifacts, obviously a little bit more religious artifact as well, which we'll get into in a second, straying away from the Crystal Skull and, the Dial of Archimedes, and staying, I don't know what the word is, but, not as far out as I believe the last two movies went. So, the item Indy will be trying to receive is the legendary sword of St. Michael the Archangel. Delving into the sword of St. Michael the Archangel, according to ancient scripture, the forbidden church text, the sword of St. Michael the Archangel was forged as a symbol of a divine weapon and symbol of judgment, protection of the righteous war. It is said that whoever possesses the sword is granted the strength and the resolve of a divine warrior, charged with the defending God's people from the forces of evil. In the hands of the just, the sword is believed to shield the innocent, bring charity and courage and unwavering purpose to those who wield it. But legend warns that the blade itself does not choose its master. If claimed by corrupt or power-hungry, the sword becomes an instrument of punishment capable of turning its divine power against the innocent. For Indiana Jones, the sword represents more than the myth or power. It's a responsibility. Indy believes relics such as these belong not in the hands of tyrants, but belongs in a museum where they could be studied and understood. But now delving into the story. It starts with, by day, Professor Henry Jones Jr. is a passionate archaeologist and gifted lecturer who believes history should be preserved and studied and respected. In the classroom in his office, he opens up, sharing stories of ancient civilizations, rare artifacts he's recovered, and the meaning behind each discovery. It is here he talks with Dr. Desmond Blackwood and Dean Harold Kingsley, speaking with excitement about his most ambitious pursuit yet, the legendary sword of St. Michael the Archangel. But beyond the university walls exists Indiana Jones, the harder explorer. This side of him was shaped by a lesson passed down from his father: never risk the lives of others for discoveries. His father believed that archaeology was dangerous, and bringing unprepared people into this field was inexcusable. That belief came from a rule Indy lived by: he always goes alone. This rule, unfortunately, was forged in tragedy when Indy's father brought a friend along on one of their journeys, but unfortunately, as said, it ended in disaster, and Indy never saw his father again. This moment cemented his reason he works solo and his hardened edges when he exploring. Like I said, there's two different people. There's Professor Henry Jones Jr., and then there's Indiana Jones, who live two separate worlds. Now getting into more of the cast and the crew, a lot of consideration obviously went into all these choices, starting with director. Obviously, the two directors you've had directing indie movies is James Mangold of recently with Dial of Destiny, and of course, the legendary Steven Spielberg. So it's definitely a high bar that has to be met. But that's why I feel going with a different choice, with the choice I decided to make, which is going with Sam Hargrave, which is, directed recently the Extraction movies, and he is more of a up-and-coming filmmaker, which is maybe not the obvious choice, obviously, given the other people are much more experienced directors, but I feel Hargrave, especially with these Extraction movies, where sometimes the story elements could be better. My favorite part of his movies are the action sequences, and the way he shoots those action sequences. I think he can bring a very unique style, and more importantly, he can bring a lot of unique action sequences to this Indiana Jones film. So I believe the story, that I like a lot, obviously, if that story is good, that I feel he can add to that with his direction and add multiple unique action, scenes and action styles, and the way he shoots the movie, that I think could very much elevate, the Sword of Eternal Fortress. And now getting into the cast, which casting Indiana Jones, this was very hard, because I wanted to find someone in the acting experience of Harrison Ford, where they're not a complete unknown and they're not extremely well known, but they've kind of in that middle where you've seen them in some things, so you do have a gauge of their acting, how well they can act, but also someone who can make this role their own. And so that's why, for me personally, I decided to go with Lewis Pullman to be our new Indiana Jones. And then getting into some of the side characters as Dr. Sabrina Merrick, I have Emma Mackey. As our villain, Lord Nikolai Krantz, I have Willem Dafoe. As Dr. Desmond Blackwood, I have Sterling K. Brown. As Lieutenant Helton von Seeger, I have Elizabeth Debicki. As Dean Harold Kingsley, as a nice callback to the original, I have Alfred Molina. And as the father, Bishop Carlo, I have Damien Bichir. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Please let me know in the comments of these 3 movie ideas I have, which one is your favorite. If you have any critiques or anything you like, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to see more videos, I have more movie ideas to cover in a part 2. If that's if that's a video you guys like to see, just please let me know in the comment section. If you could leave a like and subscribe, of course, I'd much appreciate. And as always, we'll see you in the next movie talk.